The cabin fell silent as the cop stepped into first class and pointed straight at seat 2A. "Ma'am, you need to come with me." A 17-year-old black girl sat frozen as handcuffs clicked in his grip phones rising around her to record the moment her dignity was being stripped away. To everyone watching, she was just a kid who didn't belong another problem to remove before takeoff. What no one on that plane understood was that this humiliation was being timed. Because the girl reaching for her phone wasn't calling a lawyer. She was calling the man who owned the airline. And in minutes, this flight wouldn't just be delayed. It would be cancelled, along with several careers. The Globalis Air Horizon First Class Lounge at LAX Terminal 7 was a curated bubble of tranquility. Or at least it was supposed to be. It smelled of expensive, slightly burnt coffee, subtle citrus-based cleaning products, and the faint leathery musk of new briefcases. Zoe Thorne, 17, was nestled in a high-backed, cream-colored armchair trying to disappear. She was flying solo a trip she'd made a dozen times LA to JFK. She knew the routine. She'd navigated the priority check-in, the private security line, and the lounge access with the practiced ease of a seasoned executive. Her boarding pass, safely tucked into her phone's digital wallet, read, "Thorne Z, seat 2A. Her father, Marcus, always insisted on 2A. "It's the best view, and the first one they serve," he'd say. Zoe was wearing what any 17-year-old would wear on a 6-hour flight, a dark grey Columbia University hoodie. She'd be starting there in the fall, comfortable black joggers, and a pair of top-of-the-line Bose headphones that were currently whispering a lo-fi playlist into her ears. She was trying to finish June before she landed. The whispers started about 10 minutes after she'd settled in. They came from a couple seated across the polished marble floor. They were in their late 50s, radiating an aura of expensive tailoring and generational entitlement. The woman, who would later be identified as Barbara Coington, had perfectly coiffed blonde hair that looked like it would shatter if touched. Her husband, Richard, wore a navy blazer despite the 75-degree LA weather. "It's just ridiculous," Barbara muttered to Richard, loud enough for at least 3 other passengers to hear. She wasn't even trying to be discreet. They let anyone in here now. It completely dilutes the brand. Zoe didn't look up. She'd been navigating spaces like this her entire life. She was the daughter of Marcus Thorne, one of the most powerful black men in corporate America. And she had learned early that her presence in exclusive spaces was often seen as an error, a glitch in the matrix rather than a paid-for right. Her skin color was a magnet for assumptions. Probably one of those credit card passes, Richard scoffed, tapping his gold-ringed finger on his tablet. "They give them away in cereal boxes these days." Zoe flipped a page. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. The boarding call for Globalis Air Flight 451 to New York began. Zoe waited, as was her habit, for the first-class passengers announcement to finish before she gathered her backpack and book. She joined the short priority queue standing behind the Covingtons. Barbara saw Zoe for the first time and gave a theatrical, affronted sniff. She nudged her husband. As they reached the gate agent, a harried-looking man named Brendan Barbara leaned in conspiratorially. "You'll want to check her ticket very carefully," she whispered, gesturing back at Zoe with her chin. "I'm almost certain she's in the wrong line." Brendan, whose job performance was measured by how quickly he processed the priority line, gave a tight, obsequious smile. "Of course, Mrs. Coington. Have a wonderful flight." When Zoe stepped up, Brendan's smile vanished. He scanned her phone. Beep, the screen flashed green. "Seat 2A. He paused. He looked at Zoe, then at his screen, then back at Zoe. The Covingtons were watching him standing just inside the jet bridge, creating a bottleneck. "Is there a problem?" Zoe asked, her voice quiet but clear. "This is first class," Brendan said, as if informing her of a fact she couldn't possibly know. "I'm aware," Zoe said, pointing to the screen. "Seat 2A. Can I see your ID?" he demanded. Zoe sighed, the familiar weight of this performance settling on her. This wasn't policy. He hadn't asked the Coingtons, but she complied, pulling her driver's license from her backpack. Zoe Thorne. He squinted at it then, at the boarding pass. Thorne. He seemed to be searching for a discrepancy that wasn't there. "I just need to verify this. There might be a seating conflict. Please step aside." "There is no conflict," Zoe said, her patience thinning. "You just scanned it. It's 2A. May I board?" "Please, Mom, please step aside or I'll have to call security." The word security was the magic bullet. It made other passengers stare. Zoe felt a hot flush of anger and humiliation, but she did as she was told, stepping to the side of the podium, her heart hammering a furious rhythm against her ribs. She watched as Brendan boarded 3 more first-class passengers, all of them white, without a second glance. The Coingtons were still watching from the jet bridge, whispering. Barbara had a small triumphant smirk on her face. She had flagged the problem, and the problem was being handled. Zoe pulled out her phone, but not to show her ticket. She opened a text thread with her father. On the jet bridge, GA4551, a flight attendant named Brendan. "It's happening again." Her father's reply was almost instantaneous. "Stand by. Do not get off that plane." "Okay," Brendan said, walking over to her after the priority line was clear. "The system is clear. You can board." He refused to make eye contact. He didn't apologize. He just waved her through, as if she had been the inconvenience. Zoe walked down the jet bridge, her headphones now a silent weight around her neck. She could feel the Covington's eyes on her as she entered the cabin. She found 2A, a spacious pod by the window, and began to stow her bag in the overhead compartment. "I knew it," came Barbara Coington's voice from seat 3C across the aisle. She was speaking to her husband, but projecting for the whole cabin. "She must be the guest of a player or a musician. It's the only way they can afford it." Probably flying on someone else's miles, Richard added, snapping open a newspaper. Zoe ignored them, sliding into her seat and buckling her seatbelt. The fabric was a soft premium weave, but it felt like sandpaper against her skin. A different flight attendant, a kind-faced woman in her 40s, came by. "Welcome aboard. Can I get you a pre-departure beverage? We have champagne, orange juice, or water." "Just water, please," Zoe said, offering a small, grateful smile. The Coingtons were offered the same, and they took the champagne. As the flight attendant walked away, Barbara muttered, "She should have asked for Hennessy." Zoe closed her eyes. It was going to be a long 6 hours, but the plane wasn't taking off. The boarding process finished. The main cabin door was closed, and the welcome aboard announcement from the captain began. But then it stopped mid-sentence. There was a thud as the jet bridge reconnected to the aircraft. The cabin door hissed open. Zoe's stomach dropped. Brendan, the gate agent, walked onto the plane. He was not alone. He was flanked by 2 airport police officers. One was a tall, older man with a face like cured leather and a nameplate that read Miller. The other was younger, looking nervous and uncertain. His nameplate reading Shaw. Brendan walked straight to the first-class cabin. He didn't look at the Covingtons. He didn't look at anyone else. He stopped at the aisle and pointed a trembling finger directly at Zoe. "That's her," he said to Officer Miller. "Seat 2A." She refused to show proper credentials at the gate and forced her way on. "We believe the ticket is fraudulent." The first-class cabin moments before a low hum of settling passengers became utterly silent. The only sound was the faint whoosh of the auxiliary power unit outside. Every eye locked onto seat 2A. Zoe felt the blood drain from her face. This was new. The lounge, the gate. That was a familiar, ugly dance. This was an invasion. Officer Miller stepped into the cabin, his presence filling the aisle. He had the kind of build that suggested a lifetime of enjoying rather than chasing donuts. His utility belt creaked with the weight of his equipment. His partner Shaw hung back, his eyes darting nervously between Zoe Miller and the flight attendant. "Ma'am." Miller boomed, his voice unnaturally loud in the confined space. He didn't walk to her seat. He stood at the bulkhead, forcing her to look up at him like a subject. "I'm Officer Miller with the LAXPD. We've received a report that you are occupying this seat under fraudulent pretenses." Zoe's hands were shaking, but she kept her voice steady. "That's not true. This is my seat. My boarding pass was scanned. It's 2A." I need you to show me your boarding pass and your ID again, Miller demanded. I already showed my ID to the gate agent. Zoe said, her frustration bubbling. He scanned my pass. It's valid. Are you refusing to comply with a police officer? Miller's voice dropped, taking on a menacing edge. He unclipped the radio from his shoulder. No, Zoe said quickly. She fumbled for her phone, her fingers slick with sweat. She unlocked it and pulled up the digital pass. She held it out to him. Miller squinted at it. This is a phone. Anyone can screenshot a picture. I need to see a paper ticket. Globalis doesn't issue paper tickets for app check-ins. Zoe explained, her voice rising in disbelief. You can scan the code right there. It's linked to my name, Zoe Thorne. From across the aisle, Barbara Coington let out a derisive snort. Thorne. Oh, please. How stupid do you think we are? Probably bought it off some website. Miller nodded as if Barbara's comment was expert testimony. Ma'am, we have passengers here who are concerned, and the flight attendant has confirmed your suspicious behavior at the gate. My suspicious behavior. Zoe was standing up now, her 56 frame dwarfed by Miller. My suspicious behavior was being black in a hoodie. I showed him my ID. He let me on. Brendan, the gate agent, shrunk back. She was very aggressive officer, very hostile. I felt threatened. It was such an outrageous lie that Zoe was momentarily speechless. I never threatened you. That's enough, Miller snapped. He took a step closer. Now he was invading her personal space, standing over her seat. I'm not going to argue with you. You're causing a disturbance on this aircraft. You need to gather your things and come with me. Now, I am not going anywhere, Zoe said, her voice shaking but resolute. This is my seat. I paid for it. I am not moving. You are not going to delay this flight, Miller growled. He reached down and grabbed his handcuffs from his belt, the click of the metal echoing in the cabin. I can and will arrest you for trespassing and interfering with a flight crew. That's a federal offense, little girl. You want to start your adult life with a federal record. The other passengers were filming. Zoe could see the red recording lights on at least 4 different phones. Good officer. The younger cop, Shaw, finally spoke. His voice was quiet. Maybe we should just ask the gate agent to rescan the pass at the podium or check his system. Her ID matches the name. Miller shot his partner a look of pure venom. Are you telling me how to do my job, rookie? I'm handling this. The flight crew wants her off. She's off. He turned back to Zoe. Last chance. Walk off or I carry you off. He reached out his thick-fingered hand, aiming for her arm. Don't touch me, Zoe said, her voice dropping to a low, cold warning. She held up her phone, but not to the QR code. She hit the call button on the text thread with her father. Who are you calling? Miller scoffed. Your lawyer. Your mommy. It won't matter. The phone picked up on the first ring. A deep, impossibly clear voice came through the speaker. Zoe, talk to me. What's the status, Dad? Zoe said, and she hated that her voice cracked with a sob of pure rage. It's worse. They're on the plane. A cop named Miller. He's threatening to arrest me. He says I'm trespassing. Put him on the phone, the voice commanded. There was no panic in it. It was cold, compressed energy. Zoe held the phone out to Miller. My father wants to speak to you. Miller laughed. A short, ugly bark. You think I'm falling for that? I'm not talking to your daddy? His name is Marcus Thorne, Zoe said, locking eyes with him. And I really think you should take the call. The name Thorne meant nothing to Miller. It clearly meant nothing to Brendan. But in the third row, Zoe saw Richard Coington's newspaper lower by an inch. His eyes widened. He knew that name. Give me the phone. Miller snapped, snatching it from her hand. He pressed the speakerphone button, intending to embarrass her. Listen, Daddy, your daughter is in a lot of trouble. This is Marcus Thorne. The voice cut through Miller's, silencing him. The voice didn't need to be loud. It carried an authority that vibrated through the speaker. Am I speaking to Officer Miller of the Los Angeles Airport Police? Miller's smug expression flickered. This is Officer Miller. Who are you, sir? I am the man who is about to end your career. You are on my aircraft threatening my daughter, who is a ticketed confirmed first-class passenger. You are doing so at the behest of an incompetent employee and in full view of 20 other passengers. You have 30 seconds to apologize to Miss Thorne. Turn around and walk off this plane. Miller's face was turning a splotchy red. You can't threaten a police officer, sir. I don't know who you think you are. I am the CEO and chairman of Astra Holdings. Astra Holdings is the parent company of Globalis Air. This is my plane. This is my crew. And you, the voice paused, are my problem, and I am about to solve it. A new sound entered the cabin. A frantic ding-dong, ding-dong. It was the internal comm system from the cockpit. The kind flight attendant who had offered Zoe water picked it up. Yes, Captain. Her face went bone white. She looked at Miller, then at Zoe, then back to Miller. Officer, she said, her voice a terrified squeak. The captain. The captain just got a direct call from corporate. From Mr. Thorne. He says to stand down immediately. He says, oh God. Miller, still holding Zoe's phone, looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Marcus Thorne's voice was still on the line, calm and lethal. Officer Miller, you are now being insubordinate to the captain of this aircraft who has jurisdiction. I suggest you hand my daughter her phone back. Miller's hand was shaking. He looked at the phone as if it were a bomb. He numbly handed it back to Zoe. Now Officer Miller Marcus continued, his voice now booming through the silent cabin. Please tell your partner, Officer Shaw, and the gate agent Brendan to remain on the aircraft. They are not to go anywhere. They are material witnesses in the multi-million-dollar lawsuit I am filing against the LAXPD and the City of Los Angeles. Effective now, Barbara Coington let out a small, strangled gasp. Richard looked like he was having a heart attack. Dad, Zoe said, her voice clear again. What's happening? The flight's not going anywhere, sweetheart. Marcus said I've just grounded the aircraft. Tell the captain to check his console. He's being rerouted back to the gate. As if on cue, the captain's voice came over the PA, strained and shaking. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. Apologies for the delay. We are having an unforeseen operational issue. We will be returning to the gate. I repeat, we are returning to the gate. A groan rippled through the economy cabin, but in first class, there was only a dead, horrified silence. And Zoe Marcus's voice said, from her phone, don't worry about your flight. I've already dispatched the company's private charter. It will be waiting for you at the executive hangar. Miss Petro, the head of LAX operations, is on her way to the gate to personally escort you. I'll see you in New York. Zoe looked at Officer Miller, whose entire life was visibly collapsing behind his eyes. She looked at Brendan, who was leaning against the bulkhead, looking like he was about to vomit. She looked at the Covingtons, who were frozen in a tableau of pure, unadulterated horror. Okay, Dad, Zoe said, taking a deep, shuddering breath. See you in New York. She hung up the phone. The 10-minute taxi back to Gate 77A was the longest, most excruciatingly silent journey of anyone's life. The thud of the jet bridge reconnecting was a gavel sound, an end, and a beginning. Officer Miller and Officer Shaw were still standing in the first-class aisle, trapped. They couldn't leave. They couldn't sit. They just stood there, monuments to a colossal error in judgment. Brendan, the gate agent, had all but dissolved into a puddle of nerves by the galley, muttering, oh my God, to himself. The hiss of the cabin door opening revealed a new character, one who was most certainly not on the original manifest. She was a tall woman in her late 40s, dressed in a severely sharp black pantsuit. Her silver blonde hair was pulled into a tight shiny, and her face was a mask of professional, focused fury. This was Miss Petro, the Western Regional Director of Operations for Globalis Air. She was in effect the queen of this terminal, and her king had just been threatened. She boarded the plane, and her eyes scanned the cabin, instantly assessing the situation. The two cops, the pale-faced Brendan, the smugness wiped clean Covingtons, and finally Zoe, who was calmly packing her book back into her bag. Ms. Petrov's heels clicked on the floor as she walked directly to seat 2A. ignoring everyone else as if they were furniture. "Miss Thorne," she said, her voice crisp and clear, but softened with a deep, profound apology. "I am Diana Petro. On behalf of Globalis Air and from Mr. Thorne personally, I cannot begin to express our apologies for this unacceptable failure. This is not who we are." Zoe just nodded, exhausted. "Thank you, Miss Petro. Your car is waiting on the tarmac. The Gulf Ream is being filed as we speak. If you'll please come with me." Zoe stood and grabbed her backpack. As she moved into the aisle, Officer Miller had to physically press himself against the bulkhead to let her pass. She didn't look at him. She didn't need to. His humiliation was a palpable force in the air. As Zoe and Ms. Petrov reached the front of the cabin, Ms. Petro paused and turned to the three statues of impending doom: Miller, Shaw, and Brendan. "You three," she ordered, her voice now hard as steel. "You will remain on this aircraft until my legal team arrives. That should be check's watch 4 minutes from now. Do not move. Do not speak to anyone. Officer Miller, I have already been on the phone with your precinct commander. He is eager to speak with you." Miller's jaw worked, but no sound came out. Zoe and Ms. Petrov stepped off the plane into the gate area, which was now a scene of utter chaos. Passengers from Flight 4551 were deplaning, angry and confused, their phones buzzing with alerts. "Attention all passengers for Globalis Air Flight 451 to JFK." A new gate agent announced, her voice trembling. This flight has been officially cancelled." A roar of indignation rose from the crowd. "Cancelled? I have a meeting. You can't do that." Barbara Coington, having rushed off the plane behind Zoe, bellowed for the new gate agent. "This is an outrage," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "I am a Diamond Medallion member. You will get me on another flight." That girl, she pointed a bony finger at Zoe, who was standing with Ms. Petro. "She is the one who caused all this. She needs to be arrested." Miss Petro turned her head slowly, her gaze fixing on Barbara. "Mrs. Coington, is it yes? And I demand—" "You will demand nothing." Ms. Petro said, her voice cutting through the noise. "Your behavior on this aircraft, as reported by the cabin crew and multiple passengers, is the reason this incident escalated. You, your husband, and this flight's crew are the unforeseen operational issue. How dare you effective immediately?" Ms. Petro continued as if reading a death sentence. "Astra Holdings and all its subsidiaries, including Globalis Air, are terminating their relationship with you and Mr. Coington. Your diamond status is revoked. You are banned from flying with us or any of our partner airlines for life. Your luggage will be made available at baggage claim 3. Security will now escort you from the terminal." Richard Coington, who had been trying to blend into a potted plant, finally spoke. "Now see here, my firm Sterling and Dunn spends over $2 million a year with this airline. You can't, Mr. Coington. Ms. Petro said your firm's account is also under review. I believe Mr. Thorne is personally calling your CEO, David Sterling, as we speak. I suspect he will have some thoughts on his employees' public behavior." Richard Coington's face went from an angry puce to a mottled, sickly grey. The name David Sterling and Marcus Thorne in the same sentence was a nuclear bomb to his career. He grabbed his wife's arm. "Barbara, shut up. Just shut up. We're leaving." Barbara looked as if she'd been slapped. She was speechless for the first time in her life. As two new, very large security guards approached them, she and her husband turned and performed a walk of shame through the terminal, their fellow passengers staring at them with a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. The videos were already circulating. Ms. Petro turned back to Zoe, her expression softening instantly. "This way, Ms. Thorne." She led Zoe through a private keycard access door marked "Crew Only." They bypassed the terminal entirely, walking through sterile corridors and down a private elevator that led to the tarmac. A black Cadillac Escalade was waiting, engine running. As Zoe got in, she looked back at the massive Boeing 767 parked at Gate 77A. It was dark, cancelled, a 200-ton, 100 million object grounded by a single phone call. Meanwhile, back on the plane, the legal team had arrived. 2 men and 1 woman in suits that cost more than Brendan's car. They were not there to negotiate. They were there to take statements. Officer Miller, the lead lawyer, a man named Graves, began. We have footage from at least 6 angles. We have the captain's log. We have Ms. Thorne's testimony. But just for our records, what exactly did you think you were doing, Miller, trying to regain a shred of authority, puffed out his chest? I was responding to a call from a flight crew member. I was de-escalating a disturbance. De-escalating, Graves repeated, raising an eyebrow. He held up a tablet and played a video recorded by the passenger in 3A. It clearly showed Miller grabbing his handcuffs and threatening a seated 17-year-old girl. This is your definition of de-escalation. Threatening a minor with federal charges after her valid ticket was confirmed. The gate agent said it was fraudulent. Miller stammered. Graves turned his cold gaze to Brendan. Mr. O'Malley, you told the police the ticket was fraudulent, but your own scanner system, which we have the logs for, confirmed it as valid seat 2A at 1452. Why did you lie to a police officer? Brendan was weeping openly now. The Coingtons, the Diamond members, they were complaining. I just wanted to get the flight out on time. I didn't know who she was. You didn't know who she was. Graves repeated. It wasn't a question. So you assumed you saw a young black woman, and you assumed she was a threat. You assumed she was a liar. You assumed she didn't belong. You didn't just not know who she was, Mr. Ali. You profiled her. And in doing so, you have cost this company, as of this minute, an estimated $1.8 million in rebooking fees, charter costs, and immediate reputational damage, not to mention the liability. Graves snapped his briefcase shut. Your employment with Globalis Air is terminated effective immediately. Hand over your badge. Security will escort you out. You'll be hearing from our civil division regarding reclamation of damages. Brendan collapsed into a jump seat, sobbing. Finally, Graves looked at Officer Shaw, the rookie, who hadn't said a word. Officer Shaw, you, on the other hand, did suggest a proper, non-confrontational procedure. Is that correct? Shaw, pale as a ghost, nodded. I suggested they just rescan the pass, or check the system. And Officer Miller overruled you. Yes, sir. He told me he was handling it. Graves nodded slowly. Your precinct commander, Captain Diaz, is waiting for you and Officer Miller in the terminal. I suspect your statement will be very valuable. He turned to Miller. Officer Miller, you are relieved. Captain Diaz has requested you turn over your badge and weapon pending a full internal affairs investigation. Which Graves added with a thin smile. Mr. Thorne has personally requested the Justice Department monitor. You, sir, are finished. Miller's legs gave out. He slumped against the bulkhead, his face a mask of ruined disbelief. The career he'd built on small-time bullying and lazy assumptions was over. It had been dismantled in less than 20 minutes by one phone call from a man he'd never meet. Marcus Thorne was not in New York. He was in the Astra Holdings corporate headquarters in Chicago, in a glass-walled office on the 80th floor that overlooked Lake Michigan. When Zoe's text had come in, he had been in a board meeting with the 12 most powerful people in his company. He hadn't flinched. He simply held up a hand, silencing his CFO mid-sentence. Gentlemen, I apologize. A critical family matter. He'd muted the call, his face hardening as he listened to his daughter. When he heard the words, cop, and threatening to arrest me, a cold, precise fury he reserved for extreme corporate warfare had clicked into place. He unmuted. Frank, he said to his CFO, table the Q4 projections. Diana, he said to his COO, Diana Petro, who happens to be at the LAX office. Get to gate 77A now. There is an incident with Zoe. Handle it. He then dialed his other line, the one that went straight to the Globalis Air Central Operations Center in Dallas. This is Thor, he'd said, cutting off the operator. Get me the pilot of GA451 LAX to JFK. Now, while that was connecting, he had his executive assistant, a woman named Chloe, on another line. Chloe, get me Captain Diaz, LAXPD precinct. Then get me David Sterling at Sterling and Dunn. Tell them both it is a Code Thorn emergency. They'll know what that means. Code Thorn was a term his inner circle used. It meant Marcus was personally involved and the full weight of his multi-billion-dollar corporation was about to be used as a hammer. He listened to Officer Miller's belligerent, idiotic posturing. He heard his daughter's voice strained but strong, and he made the call. Ground GA451, he ordered the Dallas operations chief indefinitely. Cite crew operational failure and get my Gulf Ream prepped at LAX. File a flight plan for Tetro. Passenger 1, my daughter. He hung up, took a deep breath, and then dialed his general counsel. Arthur, I need you to file a joint civil suit against the city of Lowinder and the LAX PD. I want you to name a flight attendant named Brendan Ali and an officer named Miller. I want it filed within the hour. And I want a press release drafted. The title is Astra Holdings declares zero tolerance on racial profiling. The entire series of calls took less than 5 minutes. He had just set fire to millions of dollars grounded a major flight and declared war on a city police department, all without raising his voice. Now an hour later, he was staring out the window. His board meeting was forgotten. His phone rang. It was David Sterling, the CEO of the investment firm where Richard Coington worked. Marcus. David's voice was panicked. Marcus, I just got your message. What in God's name is going on? My people are saying my head of strategy. Richard Coington was involved in something at LAX. David Marcus said, his voice flat. Your employee and his wife Barbara decided to racially harass my 17-year-old daughter in my first-class lounge. They then encouraged one of my employees to call the police on her, falsely claiming she was flying on a fraudulent ticket. This resulted in an officer threatening to arrest my daughter. This all happened on my airline. She is understandably traumatized. There was a long, horrified silence on the other end. Marcus Tree, I am speechless. He's fired. Richard is fired. Effective immediately. His behavior. That is not who we are at Sterling and Dunn. My God. Is Zoe okay? She will be. Marcus said she's on her way to New York now. But David, I'm looking at your firm's account with Globalis. $2 million a year. A good client. Marcus, please. Sterling begged. Don't. This is one bad apple. Please don't pull the account. It would be catastrophic. Marcus let the silence stretch. I am launching a full independent third-party audit of globalists' implicit bias training from the ground up. I'm donating $1 million to the N or LAACP Legal Defense Fund to oversee it. I expect Sterling and Dunn to match that donation as a sign of your commitment to not being who that is. Done, Sterling said, immediately relief flooding his voice. Absolutely. Done. $1 million. I'll have my people wire it today. Marcus, thank you. And please tell Zoe how deeply sorry I am. Marcus hung up without saying goodbye. He didn't care about David's apology. He cared about the message. His next call was to his own head of HR, the man now on the plane, Mr. Graves. Status, Marcus said. Brendan Ali is terminated. The Coingtons are banned for life. The police are being handled by their captain. The rookie Shaw is cooperating fully. Good. I want Ali's manager fired. And his manager fired. This is a training failure from the top down. I want a full review of the entire Western region's management chain. Find out who let this culture of assumption fester. Fire them all. I don't care who they are. Yes, sir. And the passengers on GA451. They're all stranded. Yes, sir. We're rebooking them, but the next JFK flights are full. Most won't get out until morning. We're arranging hotels and vouchers. Not good enough. Marcus said, I'm grounding the flight and crew because of a failure in my company. The passengers shouldn't pay for that. Get a new plane, a new crew from San Francisco, from Vegas. I don't care. Fly them in. I want every single passenger on their way to New York tonight. And give them all 100,000 frequent flyer miles and a personal letter of apology from me. Not for the incident, for the inconvenience. Sir, that will cost. I know what it will cost. Marcus said, do it. He hung up and finally, for the first time, allowed himself to sink into his chair. He was not just a CEO. He was a father. His daughter, his brilliant, brave, quiet daughter, had been forced to endure this again. He remembered when she was 12 at a country club in Connecticut, a woman had grabbed her arm and told her, "The staff entrance is around back." He'd had the woman's membership revoked. He remembered when she was 15 shopping for a prom dress in a high-end boutique. A sales associate had followed her accusing her of shoplifting. He'd bought the entire store's inventory and had it delivered to a women's shelter, then had a quiet word with the store's owner, who subsequently retired. He had built an empire, Astra Holdings, from nothing. It was a monolith of travel logistics and technology. He was one of the richest men in the world, and still none of it could protect his child from the simple, idiotic, pervasive poison of racism. He couldn't buy his way out of it, but today he'd shown them what his power could do. It couldn't stop the wound, but it could deliver the consequences. He had grounded an airplane, fired half a dozen people, cost another man his career, and launched $1 million initiative, all to send one simple message. "Not my daughter, not on my watch." He looked at the picture on his desk. It was Zoe, age 10, sitting in the pilot seat of his first company plane. She was beaming. He buzzed his assistant. "Chloe, cancel the rest of my day and have my plane ready. I'm going to New York. I want to be there when my daughter lands." Karma is not a lightning bolt. It is a tidal wave. It starts as a disturbance far offshore, invisible to the people on the beach. But it is coming, and it is relentless. By the time the water pulls back from the sand, it is already too late. For Brendan O'Malley, the water was pulling back. He was escorted out of the LAX terminal through a back-of-house exit. His employee badge cut in half in his pocket. He sat in his 2011 Toyota Camry in the employee parking lot, the terminated stamp on his paperwork, feeling like a brand. He had been a gate agent for 6 years. It wasn't a great job, but it had benefits. He had flight privileges. He felt important controlling the flow of passengers. He'd profiled Zoe. Why? Because the Coingtons were diamond and Zoe was not. She was a kid in a hoodie. He'd made a calculation. He'd bet on the wealthy-looking white couple over the young black girl. It was an automatic, unthinking, systemic calculation. And he had lost. He tried to log into his employee portal to check his 401k. Access denied. He was already a ghost. He drove home. The LA traffic, a special kind of hell. When he arrived, his live-in girlfriend, seeing his face, asked, "What's wrong?" I was fired," he muttered. "Fired for what?" "It's complicated. This girl in first class." "What did you do, Brendan?" He couldn't even explain it. As he was trying, his phone buzzed. It was a link from his cousin. "Dude, is this you?" It was a video already on Twitter titled "Karen and Airline Employee Call Cops on Black Teen in First Class." It had 1.2 million views. It was filmed from the seat behind the Covingtons. It showed Brendan pointing. It showed Miller threatening. It showed Zoe calm and terrified, and it showed his face clearly. His name was in the comments. Brendan Ali Globalis Air. His life was over. He wasn't just fired, he was infamous. He would never work in the airline industry again. He would be lucky to get a job packing boxes. The wave had hit, and it was dragging him out to sea. For the Coingtons, the tide was also receding. They had taken a cab back to their sprawling Bel Air mansion. The ride filled with a thick, toxic silence. Barbara was crying, not from remorse, but from rage. That which Petro banned. Banned for life after all the money we've given them. Richard was sitting on his Italian marble-topped bar, drinking a very expensive scotch. He wasn't listening. He was watching his professional life circle the drain. "David Sterling called me," he said, his voice hollow. "And what did he say? He'll fix this, right? He'll call that thorn. And I'm fired. Barbara, what, I'm fired? Terminated. My access to the company servers is cut off. My severance is under review. David told me not to come into the office on Monday. Or ever. Fired for what? For a misunderstanding on an airplane. For being a public relations liability, Barbara Richard roared, slamming his glass down, for being the star of a viral video titled "Racist CEO to Begets Black Teen Kicked Off Plane." Yes, that's what one of them is called. I just checked the video of you calling her a musician's girlfriend. The video of me scoffing at her. It's everywhere. Barbara's phone was buzzing. It was the president of the charity board she chaired. She ignored it. It buzzed again. The head of the junior league. It buzzed again. Her sister? Richard? She whispered, her rage finally replaced by a dawning icy terror. What's happening? What's happening? Richard said, pouring another 3 fingers of scotch. Is that we're ruined? We're paras. That girl's Zoe Thorne. She's Marcus Thorne's daughter. Marcus Thorne, the one I've been trying to get a meeting with for 3 years. The head of Astra Holdings. He's not just a CEO, Barbara. He's the CEO. And you just publicly humiliated his child. Barbara sank onto a bar stool, the charity board, the country club, the gala next week. It all evaporated. They weren't just cancelled by an airline. They were cancelled by their entire world. The wave was on them, and the house was coming down. For Officer Miller, the wave was a formal proceeding. He was sitting in a windowless room at the LAX precinct across from a stone-faced Captain Diaz and 2 people from Internal Affairs. His badge and service weapon were in a small cardboard box on the table. I want my union rep, Miller said, his voice. He's outside, Diaz said. But he can't help you, Robert. I've seen the videos, all 12 of them. I've heard the audio from Officer Shaw's body cam. I've read the preliminary statement from Globalis's legal counsel. I was doing my job. The flight attendant said the flight attendant lied. Diaz slammed his hand on the table. And you, a 20-year veteran, were too stupid, too biased, or too lazy to do 2 seconds of police work. You didn't check the manifest. You didn't ask the captain. You just escalated. You threatened a 17-year-old girl with arrest. A minor, Robert, on a plane. Do you know the jurisdictional nightmare you just created? She was disrespectful. She was right, Diaz shouted. And you were wrong. And now the Justice Department is opening an inquiry into our precinct's pattern and practice of racial bias at the personal request of Marcus Thorne. The mayor called me. The city attorney called me. You didn't just screw up, Miller. You didn't just get fired. You just put this entire department under a federal microscope. You're done. Your pension is gone. You're lucky you're not being charged. Yet Miller stared at the cardboard box. 20 years gone because he wouldn't listen. Because he enjoyed the fear in the girl's eyes. Because he, like Brendan, had made a calculation and he had lost everything. Even Officer Shaw, the rookie, faced a reckoning. He was praised for his testimony for his attempt to de-escalate. But he was now the partner of that racist cop. He was a witness against his own training officer. In the culture of the police force, he was marked. He had done the right thing, but he knew his time in this precinct was over. His career in the way he'd imagined it had ended as well. The only winner was the passenger in 3A, a 19-year-old UCLA film student named Sam. His video, the clearest one, had 15 million views before his phone battery died. He sold the rights to a major news network for $10,000. The wave for him was a windfall. The fallout wasn't just personal, it was systemic. The GA451 incident became a business school case study overnight. Marcus Thorne was true to his word. He fired not just Brendan O'Malley, but Brendan's direct manager, the head of gate operations at LAX, and the VP of in-flight services for the entire Western region. The message was clear. Leadership is responsible for the culture it permits. He then announced the Thor Initiative for Equity. It wasn't just another boring HR slideshow. He brought in the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, the very organization he'd forced Sterling and Dunn to donate to help him rewrite the company's training protocols. Globalis Air became the first airline to implement real-time bias intervention training. Employees were taught to spot and stop a profiling incident, even if it meant challenging a diamond passenger. They were trained to de-escalate by believing the passenger first, not the accuser. The new motto plastered in every break room was, "The ticket is the truth." Period. Marcus also invested $50 million in upgrading the airline's tech. From that day on, when a first-class ticket was scanned, the agent's screen would flash a photo of the passenger from their globalist ID file, the one linked to their passport. It removed assumption from the equation. If the photo matched the face, they were to board. No questions. The new flight crew flown in from SFO got the passengers of G451 to New York just 5 hours behind schedule. Every passenger upon landing received the email from Marcus Thorne. It apologized for the delay, explained that it was due to a failure to meet our standards of respect and equity, and confirmed the 100,000 Baltimi bonus. The public relations disaster, which should have cost Globalis stock billions, was completely inverted. The company was praised for its transparency, its swiftness, and its zero-tolerance policy. The stock rose 2 points. Marcus Thorne hadn't just handled a crisis. He had turned it into a marketing triumph. A display of absolute corporate power and surprisingly corporate conscience. Zoe's private jet, a sleek Gulfstream G650, landed at Tetboro Airport in New Jersey, just as the sun was setting. The flight was smooth, the cabin silent. She'd slept, the adrenaline finally draining away, leaving her with a bone-deep weariness. When she walked down the steps, her father was waiting on the tarmac. She didn't run. She just walked to him, and he wrapped his arms around her. He was a big man, and in his embrace, she finally felt safe. "You okay, Zoe?" he murmured into her hair. "I'm tired, Dad," she whispered. "I'm just so tired of it." "I know," he said, his voice thick. "I know. But you did everything right. You were strong. You were composed. You were you. I am so proud of you. You canneled a whole flight," she said, pulling back a small, auroch smile on her face. He gave a small, grim smile. "Sometimes you have to burn down a part of the forest to let the new growth in. They picked the wrong one, sweetheart. They picked the wrong family." "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," he said, steering her toward a waiting car. "We go home. We have a quiet dinner. And tomorrow, we let the lawyers and the press officers do their work. Our work is done." As they drove into Manhattan, Zoe's phone lit up. It was a text from a friend. "Dude, are you seeing this? Some girl got a whole flight cancelled, BC. They were racist to her. It's all over TikTok." Zoe looked at the message, then at the glittering skyline of New York. "Yeah, I saw that," she typed back. "Wild story." She turned her phone off and rested her head on her father's shoulder. 6 months later, Zoe Thorne was no longer the girl from the plane. She was just Zoe, a freshman at Columbia, acing her macroeconomics class and arguing about philosophy in a dorm common room. The incident, however, had changed her. She'd joined the Black Student Alliance, and she was more vocal. She'd found her voice not in anger, but in a firm, unyielding conviction. She was no longer willing to just put up with it. Her father's actions had shown her that her comfort, her dignity, was worth grounding a plane for. Brendan Ali was working the night shift at a 24-hour convenience store in Van Nuys. The job paid minimum wage. He had to take 2 buses to get there. One night, a group of college kids came in. One of them, buying a bag of chips, looked at him. "Hey, don't I know you?" You're that racist airline guy from TikTok." Brendan stared, his face burning. The kid filmed him. "Look, it's him, bro. You're famous." Brendan fled to the back room, the laughter of the teenagers echoing behind him. His karma was not a single event. It was a life sentence of small daily humiliations. Robert Miller lost his job, his pension, and his lawsuit against the LAXPD. The union had dropped him after Shaw's testimony, and the body cam footage proved conduct unbecoming. He was unemployable in law enforcement. He moved to Arizona, living off his dwindling savings. A bitter, angry man who blamed everyone but himself. He blamed the woke airline and the disrespectful kid. He never once understood that his own prejudice was the weapon he had turned on himself. Richard and Barbara Coington's karma was the most complete. They were forced to sell their bare mansion to cover their debts. Now that Richard's 7-figure salary was gone, they moved into a modest condo in Irvine. Barbara was removed from all her charity boards. They were uninvited from the country club. They were socially executed. The final perfect twist of karma came at a supermarket. Barbara was in line, her high-end designer bag, now looking laughably out of place in the discount grocery store. She was arguing with the cashier, a young black woman. "This coupon is for 50 cents off," Barbara insisted. "Your machine is wrong." The cashier, a 19-year-old student, looked at the coupon, then at Barbara. "Mom, this coupon expired 3 weeks ago. I can't take it. This is ridiculous. I want to see your manager." Barbara snapped, her old entitlement flaring. The cashier just looked at her, her expression not angry, just tired. "Mum, I am the manager, and I can't take the coupon." Barbara stared at her. And in that moment, she saw the world as it now saw her. She was no longer Mrs. Covington, the diamond member, the woman of status. She was just an angry lady in a grocery store trying to save 50 cents. She was nobody. She snatched the coupon back, paid for her items in cash, and fled the store, her face burning. The story for the world was a 1-week news cycle. But for those involved, it was a permanent change in trajectory. A CIO had used his power not just to protect his daughter, but to enforce a standard. And in doing so, he had delivered a form of justice that was as swift as cold and as final as the click of a first-class seatbelt. And that's how a single phone call didn't just stop a conflict. It grounded a 200-ton aircraft and dismantled the lives of everyone who let prejudice guide their actions. This wasn't just about a seat on a plane. It was about the right to belong in spaces you've earned. Zoe and her father, Marcus Thorne, proved that the most powerful weapon against systemic bias isn't just a video camera. It's actual power used decisively. The karma for Officer Miller Brendan and the Covingtons wasn't magic. It was the direct real-world consequence of their own choices. What did you think of Marcus Thorne's response? Was it too much, or was it exactly the kind of hardline stance we need to see more of? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories of drama twists and hard-hitting justice, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more true life karma stories just like this one. Click that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for listening.